Yesterday we saw in the Mishnah that it's possible for a person to go ahead and with one act of charisha, yichayev eight lavim. We said that if he's going charish with a shar v'chamar together, that's one, and the kodesh. So there'll be two more, one for the chamar, one for its bedek abayis, and one for the working with the bechar. So that'll be three. Klei kerem is four. Shvius is five. Doing Harisha and Yantif is six. Kayin is in the base of is seven. Nazir is eight. The Gemara asked, well, Chari, why don't you consider Zayreya be Yantif? Not only are you doing Harisha, you're planting on Yantif as well. So we should consider a ninth one. So we gave it Teretz, Ton of Vishaya. The Gemara said, what? Ton of Vishaya is we don't give a number. Once you give a number, you're not leaving out anything. So we gave it Teretz. Rabbi's Teretz was, let's see it again. It's on Chaf Aleph Amid Beis, about 5 lines up. Amarava yesh chilik malachas b'Shabbos, vein chilik malachas b'Yantif. In other words, when it comes to Shabbos, each one malacha we divide. But once we said charisha is zayreya, we're not going to be mechalik on Yantif, but charisha and zayreya, yichayev for charisha, we're not going to be chayev for zayreya because ain't chilik b'Yantif. Now the Gemara is going to question that again. So chilik b'Yantif, ain't chilik malachas b'Yantif, and now the Gemara is going to go ahead and question the premise. Eitzvei Abaya says Abaya. The Ein Chilik Melechas B'Yantif, but Tanya, I think it's a brisa, if I remember correctly. Yud Gimel, Tanya, it's not a Mishnah. Another list, guys. Now, the Gid HaNasha we can't eat. Now, there's a machloikis whether Yesh Begidim B'Noisein Tam or not. Is the Gid HaNasha considered just a piece of wood and it's not considered meat? Or yesh begim in tam and it has a tam of meat. My nafkamina is tremendously lenient basa b'chalav. Would you be chayiv for basa b'chalav if you would cook the gid anasha with milk? This Bryce is going to the opinion that yesh begidim in tam, and therefore you would be what? You'll be chayiv. Okay, so now hamavashel gid hanasha b'chalav b'yantif v'achloi loika chamesh. You're going to get 5 malchus. That's the cheshbon. Loikim mishum oichel gid, good. You ate the gid anasha. Loikim mishum mevashel b'yantif, and also you cooked on yantif. Shaloi litzvayrich. You know, it's achilas oichel nefesh is permitted. That's if whatever you could eat it. But stamazah, if you're going to cook and not eat it because you can't eat it, it's an aveira. Again, but it's not good. If you cook ham on yantif and you eat it, it's not considered. You're permitted to cook. Yes, absolutely. This is like the tzarech. You can't do it. In other words, that tzarech means for your needs. That's not your need. Now, for loikim mishum mevashel gid b'chalav, we know basa b'chalav, fellas, you have 3 surim. The issa achila, issa bishul, issa hana. Right, can have enough from it, and issa cooking. So he was mevashel gid. V'loikim mishum oichel basa b'chalav. He ate basa b'chalav, and finally v'loikim mishum havara. He's what? That he's chayiv for havara an eish shalei l'tzayrach. Now l'chayra, you just had 2 things together. V'misa mishum havara le'mechayiv the chayiv mishum bishulai. Once you told me there's chilik malachas by yamtif, why are you chayiv if you for cooking on yamtif shalei l'tzayrach and havara lighting? It's out of order, right? The kash. So the Gemara's kasha is l'chayra. You should be what? If you're telling me that what that ain't chilik b'yantif, yesh chilik ain't chilik b'yantif. Why are you chayiv for havara? You shouldn't be chayiv because you're already chayiv for bishul. You can't be chayiv 2 averis for yantif. You do charisha v'zariya on yantif. You only chayiv 1. What are you doing over here? Bishul and lighting it up. And you want to say, and it says you chayiv 5. That's the 5th one. So you are being mechayiv me 2 things for yantif. So how can you tell me what ain't chilik b'yantif? You see from this brisa that what? Yes, you do. So, says the Tzfiraish, V'misa mishum avara le'mechayev. You should be chayev. Though chayev le'mishum bishula. You're already chayev for bishul. So kasha again on Rabbi's teretz. Rabbi's teretz was we won't chayish v'zeireya and charisha b'yantif because ain't chilik malachis. Yet over here you see that lot. There is a chilik malachis, and for the Gemara. Afik havara, you're right. Take havara out because it can't be there. But I'll get anasha shel nevela. So what you did was you ate. So now you chayiv for 3 achilas. You chayiv for get anasha. You chayiv for basa b'chalav, achilas basa b'chalav, and you chayiv for what? For McDonald's. You chayiv for nevela. you chayiv in nevela. So you answer the kasha by taking out havara. Now you don't have chilik malachos, correct? And you have 5. The problem is you have 5 on achila. And what's the problem with that? Vatani Rav Chia loike shtayim al achila, so only 2 on the achila, v'sholosh al bishuloi, and 3 on bishuloi. So by going ahead, taking out avara and putting in nevela, right, we have a problem. We have a Messiah that we learned that the only 2 chiyuvim for bishul, not 3 chiyuvim for bishul. Over here you have 3 chiyuvim for bishul, nevela, basa b'chalav, and giranasha. If you went ahead and put in nevela. So again, fellas, what we're going to do is the same thing. We're taking out havara, that answers the kasha. All we have to do is find another 5th thing, and that'll be okay, a fifth lav. Okay? So it can't be putting in the vela, because the Messiah on this is of the 5, 3 of them are bishul, and 2 of them are achila, and therefore it can't be in the vela, because in the vela you get a 3rd achila. Okay. But Tani Rav Chia like a shtayim al achilas v'shalosh al bishuloi the isa. If you're going to tell me that he's cooking to get a nasha of nevela, shalosh al achilas hu chayiv. Eli, you're right. Afik havara. Again, why are we taking havara? Because you only have 1 chilik by yontif. Afik havara va'ayel atzei ashera, and put in. You know what you cooked it with? You cooked it with atzei ashera, a holtz from a tree that was din for avodah zara. That's a rasei mehacha. It says that that's the ashara. Nothing should be from the cherim should not be there. So therefore, that is a good teretz. That's a good teretz. So in other words, we have the 5. We don't have the kasha, since we took out of avara. We don't have the kasha from yontif now, and we have the 5. We have the 5. What are we chayiv for? You chayiv for cooking, eating the giranasha, eating basa b'chalav, cooking on yontif shalit tzarech, cooking basa b'chalav, and cooking with what? With the 3rd bishul, we're cooking with the atzei ashera, because we needed 3 on the bishul. Fred the Gemara, the Rav Lavashi, v'lulkin nami mishum leisavi ta'eva el beisecha. I have a problem. How could you go ahead if you're going to tell me it's atzei ashera? L'chari, it's a 6th. In the L'chari, there's only Messiah and 5 over here. You could ask a kasha, so as vos, so they have 6, but they said 5, mashma only 5. Now there's an isser of leisavi ta'eva el beisecha. Right, you're shrimping a tayeva into your house. So how could you bring in this atzei ashera? Elahacha b'mayaskinon kigoin shebishloi ba'atzei hegdish. You use atzei hegdish v'asarase mehacha v'ashareim tisru be'esh. Dear trees, you should go ahead and burn in fire. Like sasu kein Hashem elokeichem, but your God you should not burn. So that's the 5th one. So we have the 3 cooking. Is you're cooking basa b'chalav, right? You're cooking basa b'chalav. You're cooking what? You're cooking using atzim of. You're cooking on yontif, and you're cooking what using atzim hegdish, and the 2 achilas is giranasha and basa b'chalav, but not yontif, and therefore Rav's teretz is a good teretz. To answer up, why don't we have a 9th one for Zayreya by the 8th? You chayef a chrisha of yontif. One you chayef a Zayreya yontif, and al stimmt, as they say. Okay, Simin is Shinbai Shinaz. These are the names of the letter from one of the Amoraim's names. Maskefla Rabbi Shaya. Okay, that's the Shin in Shinbaz, right? Maskefla Rabbi Shaya. V'lichshav nami, and on Mishnah, when you considered 8, why don't you go ahead and include Hazareya ben Achaleson? You have an Eglah Rufa. What's an Eglah Rufa? You found a dead body between 2 cities you measured. The city that's closest would go to bring an egla. Where? Not in the place where you found the murderer. I know people mistakenly think that, right? It's Nachal Eishon, and a valley that was never worked. It's virgin soil, and it's Asabana. So if you go ahead and stelzich that this guy is being chayrish in Nachal Eishon, we can add another to the 8th. We can add a 9th, right? Because it's speaking where what? It's the place where the egla rufa was, right? V'lechshav nami hazarei ben Nachal Eishon. V'azari mehacha. Where's the hazara? Asher lo ye obey boy v'lo yizareya. Okay, asher lo ye obey boy v'lo yizareya. Okay. Maskav lo Rav Chanina. In other words, each one is going to add another to the 8th. We can add another one, guys. To the 8th, we can add another one. Maskav lo Rav Chanina v'lechashiv nami hamoichik es Hashem b'alichasoi. As he's going along with what? With his plow, he somehow manages to go ahead and erase the Shem Hashem. Maskul bavo. Notice each one is saying another possibility to answer the 8. Maskul bavo v'lechashav nami hakoitzes barasai. As he's going along, he cuts off a tzaras, and you're not supposed to cut off a tzaras. This week's parsha. V'azarasei mehacha hashoyim benega tzaras. Maskul abaya v'lechashav nami hamez. This is a real stretch. Hameziach hachoyshem me'ala ephod v'hameser badei aroin. So the Pashit, I would have said, he's going along at Getroffen the Kohen Gadol, and he somehow loosened the, right? Or he met the Aron and pushed the sticks out. Okay, again, Uncle Elliot's not here, Mendy's not here. We're B'nai Torah, and we all know that we're just considering possibilities of, there doesn't be reality, there just has to be a lav, right? Now, the more interesting part is the Ritva, guys. The Ritva says he separated the Chaysh and he was wearing it, B'shas the Charisha. And he separated the Badi Aron, he was using them for the Charisha. That's the way he learned. In other words, the Pashat Aruch Laner learned, like I just said to you, along the way, he happened to meet. Either way, why do we consider these things? What?
Is he wearing a cowboy hat also?
No. Ulachashav nami hamaziach hachoshem yala efoid, v'hameser badi Aron v'azrasem yehacha v'lo yasuru v'lo yizach hachoshen. Maskul Ravashi ulachashav nami hachorish ba'atzi ashera. You're using for your plow the atzi ashera itself. V'azrasem yehacha v'lo yidabek v'chor b'uma. Maskul Ravina, again, these are all the mnemonics of the Shinbaz. But Maskul Ravina ulachashav nami hakoitzes ilonos toivos baltashchus. You're cutting down what? Trees. Azar mehacha ki mimenu toichal ve'oiselei sichreis. Amle Reb Zeira leRebbi money ulachashav nami going to Amash. Okay, we'll get to this in a second. If David, you have a question, but you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. The first one was Nachal Eson, but from the 8, one of them was that it was in the cemetery, because it was a Kayin Nazir that was in the cemetery.
Yes. So a sense, so the Nachal Eson was near the cemetery. You know, it's on the way. On the way, Ketrafin was there. The land was connected. They had a cemetery, and next to the cemetery was Nachal Eson. It was Nachal Eson means a land that was never used. It was never used before. So
right.
So therefore, it was right next door. It's the one that makes the most sense because it's the one. There's an actual charisha in the karka. Some of the other ones are like, I mean, okay, but again, the bottom. That's the bottom line. Now the Gemara now gives a different lumdis. The Gemara gives a lumdish shayla, a lumdish shayla. What's a lumdish shayla? The following. So, Maskevla Ravina. We did that one already. So Amale. Amale Rav Zeira Rav Money will chashiv nami in the Mishnah, for example, going to Amar shvua shlei echreish biyantif, a shvua that I won't go ahead and now he was over on a shvua. So you have a 9th one. He made a shvua that I won't go ahead and be charish on yantif. Says the Gemara, hasam loy kachal shvua. Over there's no chalos to the shvua because mushba boy me'asin I hope. In other words, we're going to see Masechta Shavuos. One of the things that is one of the easier sugis in a very hard Masechta, guys, is you always wonder, guys. You ever see they don't take Mishnayos, they don't take Shavuos. Or when they're learning Shas, very few people take Shavuos. There's a reason. Yeah, it's a reason. It's okay. Anyway, Kenny, I still remember learning Shavuos 7.5 years ago in that little tiny room by Yehona's son. That we learned Shavuos that night. You came in, it was very interesting. Okay, anyway. So we at Har Sinai, we made a Shavuot to keep the Torah. And one of the things it says in the Torah is that what? That you can't work on Yontif. So if you go ahead and make a Shavuot not to work on Yontif, you are going ahead what? Ain't Shavuot Chalal Shavuot. One Shavuot can't be Chal on an existing Shavuot. We're Mushba V'Oimer Har Sinai. We're in a state of Shavuot from Har Sinai, so therefore we didn't consider that. The Gemara. So Amalei. So Rav Mani said to Rav Zeira, "Kigoin to Amar Shvuah Shlei Echresh Bein B'Choil Bein B'Yontif." Make a shvuah that what? That I won't go ahead and be charish b'choil, and as a result, I won't be charish b'yontif. And miga the chalal shvuah b'choil chalal leha nami be yontif. Okay, it's a difficult revun over here, but basically, we know ain't issa chal issa. One issa can't be chal on another issa, but there are ways it could be chal. There's an issa kailel and an issa moisif. The issa kailel means the following. Let's say you go ahead, and your woman, right? There's a woman. She's asati. Good. Prostitute. Now you marry her daughter. Now you're marrying her daughter, right? So it's moisif and another isha, right? One's with chenek and one's sreifa. You know what I mean? It's your mother-in-law. Good. I'm sreifa. I forgot. Maybe sreifa. I forgot what it is. Got it? That's issa moisif. Issa kailo. Good. I go ahead and I make a general statement. In that general statement will be included something that already was asa previously. Since I'm creating new isurim, koilel included in that would be an existing yisur. So I can't make a shvua not to work on yontif. To work on yontif. Not shvua not to work on yontif. Of course, I already made. I could make a shvua not to work during the week and yontif. Since it's chal on the week, it's chal also on yontif. So Mimela, Fred the Gemara Kasha, I could have what? I could have a ninth one. You're telling me you can make a shvua because what? It's you're already mushba by midmar Sinai. There ain't shvua chalal shvua. Using the concept of issa kolel, right? I could go ahead and once I'm usher on during the week, it'll include that. So therefore, I would have created another issa. I'm not allowed to go ahead and I'm a shvua not to go ahead and plow on yontif. And so that's a February kasha. So says the Gemara, Midi Isya, so for the Gemara, Midi the Isya b'sheila like kitani. Something that you could take off, we didn't learn. Now we all know, mutalach, hataras nadarim, shvuas, kinoyim, everything. So in other words, you know why we didn't learn shvua as a ninth one? Because we didn't go ahead and include something that is b'sheila, that you could take off. Fred the Gemara v'lo yivari hegdish. You learned hegdish, right? You learned hegdish. What's hegdish? L'chayra, you will magdish the animal. But what did I tell you? What animal are we speaking about, guys? You remember? A bachar. Bachar. Why did I tell you bachar? Not because the bachar is kaddish merechem. There's no sheil on a bachar. So and for the Gemara, bachar. In other words, that animal, that shar is a bachar. It can't take it off. For the Gemara, vari nazir. Nazir is b'sheila. You can take it off. It's right. And for the Gemara, b'nazir shimshin. Nazir shimshin is you can't take off. For the Gemara, nazir shimshin bar itmuya lemesim. Who? Guys, great kasha, right? You had the nazir. One of the 8 was the nazir in the cemetery, but a nazir shimshin could be mitam lemesim. It's not so pashut. There's a daya that Shimshon killed. He killed killed a bunch of Plishtim with the jawbone of a donkey. So there's a daya that uses like a boomerang because he couldn't touch the mace. So he used like a boomerang. Okay. Anyway, Ella Haitana Issa Kailo Leslie. This time doesn't have Issa Kailo. It's Geshmak. In other words, the only way you were going to include this 9th one of Shvua al Yidei Chol B'Kodesh is using the mechanism of Issa Kailel. This guy doesn't hold the Issa Kailel. The Tana of Mishnah does not hold the Issa Kailel. And Memela, you're limited. You only have 8, and you can't go ahead and create the 9th. Okay, interesting Gemara. Amar Rabbi Shaya. Psuli Amikdashim, guys. You have an animal that was a carbon, and it got a mum. An animal that is a carbon, you can't redeem. You can't redeem it. That's kedushas haguf. You can't redeem it. Once it gets a mum, and no longer could you go ahead and bring it as a carbon, that's kedushas damim, and you could redeem it. However, it retains kedusha. It retains kedusha. What kedusha? You can't work with it. And if it has milk, you can't use the milk. It has wool, you can't use the wool. So it still has aspects of kedusha, even though you can barbecue it in your backyard. So says the Rivon, this animal, Psulim Mikdashim, has a combination of 2 things. It has a Kodesh aspect and it has what? It has a choil aspect. It has a kodesh aspect and it has a chol aspect. Good. So look at Tosfos. Shahare guf echad vasu beis gufim. Hakunchus pirish kagirsis Rabbi Tam pirish binyanacha kamin chaymer dechsibe kitzvi v'cha'ayol. Guys, we say that just like a deer and a heart. Those are you can't bring. You don't have to bring to the base hamikdash. You can't. You could eat it wherever you are. So to psulim mikdashim, you could eat wherever you are. Says Tosfos, we'll view psulim mikdashim like a tzvi v'ayol. So in this animal, you have a shar, and you also have a tzvi. You also have a heart. You also have a deer. So therefore, according to Rivon, it's one's kodesh and chayil. According to Tosfos, you have tzvi v'ayol. Either way, you have one animal, fellas, that's kalayim. Either way, you have one animal that's kalayim. In other words, two breeds in one animal. You have two breeds in one animal. The Rivon, a lumdish breed, this is kodesh, and it retains the kedusha. According to Tosfos, because there's a kosiv, will view psulim mikdashim like tzvi v'ayol. My nafkamina says the Gemara is the nafkamina. Amar v'shaya harmarbia sharp psulim mikdashim like a shnayim. Right? If you go ahead and you breed psulim mikdashim with a regular animal. Let's say you take a sharim with a cow. That should be you're going to get what? Two malchus. One because kalayim, one because of kalayim, and also you did avodah with behem of hegdish. Guys, you hear? One because of kalayim. Now where's the kalayim? One's a shar and one is a cow. And the answer is, according to Rivon, in the shar is what? Is kedusha. In the cow is just chulin. According to Tosfos, you have a tzvi v'ayol, and therefore that's the problem. Next case, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Hamanig b'shar psulim mikdashim, someone who leads a shar psulim mikdashim, loika, shari guf echad hu v'asu akasav shnei gufim. Guys, loisachresh b'shar v'chamor yachtav. If you take a shar psulim mikdashim, attach it to a wig and work, you be chayiv. In one animal, we'll view it as two things. We'll view it as a shar, and we'll view it as a tzvi v'ayol. Great trivia question. How's it possible to be over on with one animal? Okay, now look at the bottom Tosfos, fellas. Hamanig b'shar psulim loike v'dafka imoshach. Dafka if you pull hashar, right? Masle begufay. Dafka if the shar pulls a load with his body. Avabloi hamshacha ein loika b'hanhaga. Guys, if you had a sharp psulim mikdashim, you won't be able to move it. In other words, it means that you can't work, you can't put a load on it and be mashachit. But stam is like to lead it, you could do it. The Tosfos is saying. But again, a fabulous idea that in one animal you could possibly have two lavim. Okay, kama malkan I say. How much malchus do you get? So there's a pasuk, which I should give it to you. Where's the chumash? Is there a chumash around? Right there. I'll get it. The little chumash right there. Okay. Devarim Chafhei. What? I don't know where I found it. I know. Okay, fellas, in Devarim Chafhei, Pasuk Beis, V'hoya, guys, listen to this. V'hoya im bin hakres harasha, v'pilu ha'shoifet v'yikol lefanav, kidei risha asay b'mispar. According to Risha's b'mispar, according to the count. The next pasuk says, Arboyim yakenu. You should give him 40. Now, we're going to know that 40 is 39. Because it's two separate psukim. It says b'mispar arboim, and guys, here's the way we're going to darshan. B'mispar, the number of the count ba'arboim to get to arboim, which is 39. The one to get to arboim, which is 39. And the way they darshan is because it's two separate psukim, and b'mispar, how much? Arboim. But if it meant exactly arboim, it would have said arboim b'mispar. It would have said that. So with that, okay. Let's say arboim chasa achas, 39. Shneimar b'mispar arboim, in the mispar of arboim. Minyan shu samech la'arboim. The number that's samech to arboim, as I just told you. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion, Arboyim shleimus. Hulaika. You got to tell 40. The Heichen Hulaika, Esayasera. Where does he get the 40th one? According to them, we're going to see, guys. They took the Malchus, they divided up into 3. So you get 3 in the back, three in the front, 3 in the back, all right, and 3 in the places. And where did you get the 4th one? According to him, the 4th one between the shoulders. Ein oim de Maisai, el b'makas aruyas l'shtalish. They think of this 39 was the max. They would go ahead and have a doctor who would assess exactly how much Malchus this person could take. But the assessment would be based on a divisible of 3, fellas. It had to be a divisible of 3. So now, Malchus that's right to go ahead and be divided by 3. All right, okay. Let's say you went ahead and you figured out this guy could do 40. The loika mitzas, and you began going ahead and hitting him. And you see the guy is not doing well. And then you went ahead and you said, what? Now what do? Do you wait till he gets better and finish it off? Says, no, potter. You potter. Says Rashi, why? Top line, Rivon. Potter. The kivin in his vaze bebezdin. Since he's been embarrassed in Bezdin already and hit a bit, sagile b'chachi, it's enough. Avol, this is a key. Loy laka, let's say you established for 40, and you didn't go ahead and start, but you see the guy is scholishing. Elamdu la'boyim v'chosu v'amdu shein yochel l'kabel kulam le'mifter. He's not potter then. Dein v'shoy l'groya ha'oimed eloloika achasman. V'hachanami im avdu l'shmoina asa. If he's amid for 18 and mishalaka, when you start hitting him, you see the guy's healthy and he's going to take more. No. In other words, if you began doing it, whatever you or omitted, if you did 39, change. We're going to be makel. If you did 18, we're going to be makel. We're not going to go said you could do more. That's only if you began. If you didn't begin, then you're going to go ahead and reclassify. You go the other way around. In other words, yeah. And then you see you could take more, but you didn't begin like you're going to go more, right? You're going to. And according to this, if you did, again, it's important for the Gemara. According to this, if you didn't begin hitting the guy, you don't go based. You're doing away with the first cheshbon. You're doing away with the first assessment. If you went ahead and started hitting, then whatever. Again, you're going to change everything. 39, no, 18. I'll keep that, whatever, not more. But if you didn't begin, then we're going to go ahead and reassess. We won't keep the first one. Okay. Okay. Says the Gemara, my timer. What's the reason for 40? What's the reason for 39? It says 40. It says 40. What's the reason? Says the Gemara, my timer. Iksiv, if it would have said Arboyim b'mispar, 40 in number, Havamina Arboyim b'minyana, right? Hash d'chsiv b'mispar, in one pasuk b'mispar, and then Arboyim, minayin shu soikim es Arboyim. How do you know it's the number that counts up to Arboyim? That's what it means. The number counting up to Arboyim, which is 39. Amarava, kama tipshoy shar inshi. How foolish are people? The kaimi mekame sefer Torah, they get up in front of a sefer Torah, like kaimi mekame gava rabba, and they don't get up in front of a Talmud Chacham. Dilu b'sefer Torah ksiv arboyim v'asur abanim batzu chada. Famous Gemara, guys. For Torah, see a sefer Torah walking, there's not a person in the world that won't get up. You see a person in Talmud Chacham walking, often people just don't bother. Yet the Talmud Chacham touched up the Torah. The Torah said 40. He told you no, 39. He told you 39, and that's the halacha. That's the halacha. The Torah Shebal Peh takes precedent over the Torah Shebechsav. If you believe in Torah Shebechsav only, that's called a tzedaki, a prushi. It's not good. Anyway, so says Rava, Kama Tipshoy, how foolish Shar Inshi, the Kaima Mekame Sefer Torah, like Kaima Mekame Gavra, they don't get up in front of what? In front of a person, right? But the Ilu Sefer Torah Ksiv Abayim, Vasra Banan, and Basru Chad, they delete one. Rabbi Yehuda says Aboyim Shleimus, you get 40, and where do you get the extra one? You get it what in your between the shoulder blades. Rabbi Yitzchak, my time with Rabbi Yehuda that the extra one goes over there, the chsiv, because the pasuk says, because the pasuk says, Mo hamakos ha'ela ben yodecha, ve'ama asher hu kesi base me'avoy. I mean, you're getting me hit because of love. So l'chayra it says ben yodecha. So we want to learn that it's speaking what between your between your shoulders, between your hands. For Rabbanon who say that you only get 39 and you don't get 40th. Why don't you get hit over there? That pasuk is speaking about the kiddie teacher who uses applied psychology to go ahead and get his young to listen. Okay, yeah. So therefore, it's not speaking about Malkus at all. Ein oimdim elamakis haruyas. Guys, this is a little tricky. So let's go through it again. Guys, outside, eye contact. Okay, eye contact. A little tricky, right? We said you made an umdina for 40. You started hitting the guy, and you see that what? He can't take it, you stop. You don't say, no, I'm going to keep you 40. He's finished. You made an umdina for 18. And you see the guy is going strong, you don't hit, you don't continue. That's it. That's it. That's if you began hitting. What happens if you didn't begin hitting and you saw that he was cholish? Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to reassess. You're going to go ahead and reassess. You won't say you're finished. 18, you'll reassess. Good. Now, locka in, dafka locka in or you pata, loy locka loy. But if not, you're not pata. You're going to go reassess. You don't go after the first cheshbon. I'll ask you a stira because I'll show you that you do go after the first cheshbon. I'll show you do go after the first cheshbon. Amdu lekabel arboyim. You went ahead and assessed he could take 40. Amdu she'en yachal lekabel arboyim patar. It doesn't say over here. It says v'chazru v'amdu. Guys, you weren't like it says you pata. Might mean you pata from the 40. You don't go ahead and say he has to get better. We wait. You pata. Even though what? You didn't hit him. In other words, you go after the first assessment. You go after the first assessment. Amdu l'kabel abayim v'chazru v'amdu she'en yachal kabel abayim pata. Even without hitting. Amdu l'kabel shmone esrei v'chazru amdu she'yachal kabel abayim pata. You pata after 18. You're not pata completely. So mavshesh le'kasha. Hamda dua am liyuma. Our Mishnah is speaking where the Omer went for the day. What does that mean? Guys, if you went ahead and you were Omer that this guy can take X amount. And then you see in one day that he couldn't. So in Mela, you see that your first cheshbon was a mistake. A person doesn't go ahead and get so sick so quickly. So when you said 40, he really can never take 40. Therefore, the second cheshbon is the right one. Masha'en came where the assessment is like further, then that assessment was subject to change. I don't know the time. Says Rashi, Handam du aliyuma, Rivon, Masnisan am Mishnah, be'amdu aliyuma, lekabel mem oishmeine esrei. Our Mishnah, when you said 40 or 18, fellas, v'hilkach, ki chazru v'amdu b'y bayoim, she'en yachal lekabel, when you go ahead and reassess that day, or yachal, or 18, and you could be mekabel more, iglai milsa, da'aymet shalahem lehaya klum. The first assessment was nothing. You blew it. Kivin debay bayoim sasru kol masha amdu. Since that day itself, you went ahead and changed. Shari zel nishtana, he didn't change. V'lay hikish, b'shoyis mu'at kazeh, and he didn't get weaker. You blew it. Yesh laimar dehem ta'u ba'aymet. Hilkach, ki amdu tchil rabayim v'chazu v'amdu bay bayoim, shein yachal lekabel, im laka miktsasran paitron aisayishan is vazeh, if you gave Malkus. V'im loy laka, harihu kimi shalayim do a klal. And if you didn't give Malkus, guys, we're going to do away with the first one completely because you blew it. V'achshav hu d'ma'ayina bedina. Now they're looking into it. V'yamru en yachol. And now you say, umamtinan loy achi yivrei. You wait till he gets better. V'yo'ayin d'ma'asayin. Then you have a new umdina. Oymid aroyla. V'chein amdu tchila liyutches. Uboy bayom chazru v'amdu shiyakol kabel abayim. Igloi milsa d'toy ba'oymid. You blew it. So you got the idea. And the Brisa, the next we've on, u'Brisa b'da amdu l'macha liyuma achra. Next day, another day. You took your time that you're going to see. Guys, if you took your time, you know that the first one, Shiyafa Aina, you did well. Shayachal Zel Kabul ad Oisa Yoim, Kach for Kach. In other words, you assess that this guy is going to able to take it for a longer period of time. So it's a much more clinical diagnosis, right? Much more clinical diagnosis what he could take. That Kach Kach Machas El Nishtana, that it changed the Hikkish and he got weaker. Hilkach Yamdu La Boyim ad Yoim Ploini. If you went ahead and you oimid, he could take 40 until X amount of days. Since he changed, the actual umduhu that it was oimid him, that is mevazah him. Memela. Of course, it's his wife. Can you imagine? The new thing. It wasn't my son Yitzi usual who deserves the share. It's his wife, Madrega. Okay. Anyway, it's interesting. So the Brisa is speaking that the Oimid Sheni was the next day, or another day, and we toila that the first assessment was correct. So guys, look at me. The first assessment was good. He changed over time. Therefore, what? Since the first assessment was good, he'll be potter with that first assessment. That's the teretz. Says the Mishnah. Ova Aveira sheyesh bo shnei lavim. It is over an Aveira that has two lavim. Over Aveira is over Aveira that has two lavim. Let's see, Scharish with a Shorach Hamor together, or Psur Mikdashim. Okay, it's in the Kerem. Amdua oimid echad. We're oimid on the two malchus, one umdana, how much he could take. And how is that like? Upata. In other words, we'll kill two birds. Literally, guys, we'll kill two birds with one stone. The imlav, loika, umisrape, v'chaysav loika. If not, if the umdana didn't work out, guys, for example, watch, guys, 39, right? And he could take another 3. He could take 42. We'll give him 42 because it has to be divisible by 3. So the 42 will go ahead. You'll kill 2 birds with one stone. 41, not 41. You'd have to give him 39, and then you'd have to wait till it gets better to give him the other, whatever. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Okay. But Tanya, in oimdem oimid echad l'shnei lavim, you don't make one assessment for 2 lavim. Rav Sheshes like kasha, hamda dula arboyim v'chada, hamda bula arboyim v'tarti. As I just told you, right? 41, not 42. You would. We'll stop.